Come on, YouTube. Check, check. Can you guys hear us? I should also make my audio mono so you don't hear me only in one ear. This
No, I
is
hear you both ears.
no, but this is
Oh,
different. Yeah, for the stream.
for the stream.
My microphone should be mono. Okay, now you should hear me in both ears, not just the left one, not just the right one. We're live, and I'm gonna do the intro now. Hello there, and welcome to the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. We're doing season 15, episode 30, with Charlie Lee, who is on the show for the third time, and we're going to talk about some very spicy stuff regarding Litecoin, Lightning, Bitcoin development, Charlie's interest in Bitcoin development, and I think we're also gonna cover some of the Mimblewimble extension block stuff because I launched a challenge on Twitter. I presented an address. Nobody was able to guess how much Litecoin I have in it. And I think that's a good sign. But some Bitcoiners thought it was just a BIP47 stealth address. So I guess we have some explaining to do about it. Welcome, Charlie. It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me, Vlad. I'm actually surprised I've been on your show for three times already. That's uh that's pretty special. I don't think I've been on any other show three times.
Yeah, so I had you in December of 2020 when we spoke about some stuff not related to Bitcoin. The challenge was to get Bitcoiners to not talk about Bitcoin. And we spoke about video games. You told me that you were playing on your Xbox. What's it called? The newest one. Not the one. The Series X. You had
Series
that one?
X?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you told me you had just beaten Super Mario Brothers on your mini console. And also, what else? You told me that Star Wars Dark Forces is really great, and you are playing it now. It's remastered and it's launched. You can play it again with better graphics. And the second time we spoke about MWeb, Mimblewimble extension blocks, but it seems like not enough people picked that up, and we're gonna have to explain that once again. And the reason why I decided to get you on this show and do this interview is that I realized that the Lightning Network, okay, the narrative when I first started using the Lightning Network was that every altcoin is gonna get obliterated. It's gonna get replaced by Lightning. There's no point in Litecoin, there's no point in Dash, in Bitcoin Cash, or whatever, all of these payments coins, as long as Lightning works. And I bought into that and I thought the future is gonna be Lightning only. And then how long has it been? 6 years or more since Lightning became mainstream. It seems like Lightning is losing traction. There are fewer coins that get locked in, there are fewer channels, there are fewer nodes, and the ones that exist are becoming more quote unquote efficient, which means centralized. And at the same time, you get statistics from BitPay, you get statistics from Bitrefill, and they say that Litecoin is being used by a majority of users. And it's baffling me, you know? I thought this was not supposed to happen. According to a lot of Bitcoin maximalists, Litecoin was supposed to be dead, so why is it not dead?
I mean, you can't believe everything Bitcoin maximalists say, right? They've been pretty wrong for a long time. Um, but I was a huge proponent, I still am of Lightning, right? I think Lightning or in general, like second layer solutions is going to be the future of how Bitcoin and even how Litecoin scales, right? So there's the main chain, and in order to keep the main chain as decentralized as possible, we'll have to scale in on other layers. And in some sense, Litecoin is helping Bitcoin scale by taking a lot of the transactions, like the low cost transactions. And I think even if Lightning succeeds, um, Litecoin will still have a place, right? There's always going to be people who want on-chain transactions that are low fees, and even if Lightning works in the future, the cheapest way to onboard onto the Lightning Network would still be Litecoin and other coins, right? So you can still onboard onto Lightning Network with Litecoin and then convert it easily do an atomic swap to Bitcoin Lightning, right? So I think that would be the future, and that's kind of my vision ever since I first kind of discovered Lightning and how it's going to help Bitcoin and Litecoin.
I do remember at one point you posted a tweet in which you described Lightning and the Lightning white paper as being the second greatest moment in your discovery since reading the Bitcoin white paper. And at the time, the narrative for Lightning was that this is going to be this highway for swapping tokens, and you're going to have multiple blockchains that open Lightning channels, and then you do atomic swaps between them. And honestly, I tested Lightning on Litecoin before I tested Lightning on Bitcoin. It was eCurrency Hodler. I'm not sure if I can say his real name or if he's comfortable
Mm-hmm.
with that.
Yeah.
And I ran his guide and I was able to run a Litecoin Lightning node before it was cool in early 2018. And I was thinking that this is going to be the future, right? You open channels with Litecoin for cheap and then you swap LTC for BTC with atomic swaps. But it seems like this version or this vision of Lightning never happened. It was just BTC that adopted it, and then Blockstream tried to also do something similar with Liquid, and that one didn't get much traction. Why do you think this idea of atomic swaps didn't get too much traction?
Um, so like Lightning Labs is not working on atomic swaps right now. I mean, I think their goal is to actually get Lightning to a better state than it is right now, right? The end goal is that people who are using Bitcoin and Litecoin, they don't need to worry about channels and all the complexity, right? You don't want the end user to have to worry about all that. So that still has to be simplified and make very simple for people to get onto the Lightning Network and spend Bitcoin and Litecoin um, fast and cheap without ever having to think about channel management. So, and to be honest, this hasn't happened yet, and it's been a while. So, I think it's still I still have hopes for Lightning to become more easy to use and for people to start using it more. But that's gonna seems like it's taking a while, and I don't think that's a big problem. I think in the future, Lightning and other secondary solutions will start to take more of a transaction load from Bitcoin on chain, and that's just going to happen.
So, do you believe that Litecoin is going to help Lightning Network scale?
Um, I do. Once people are on using Lightning, um, more and more people will start working on getting atomic swap on Lightning working well, and that would be the cheapest way to get on the Lightning network via Litecoin and then atomic swap to Bitcoin. So I still do think that would be something that would happen in the future, and it's just taking a lot slower than most people expected.
But there are some Bitcoiners who are disillusioned with Lightning because it went from promising to provide this layer 2, which makes transactions very fast and enables anyone to run a node from a Raspberry Pi, to becoming more efficient in the sense that you had all of these LSPs that basically are recommended for you to have a non-custodial experience. And now there's this talk that Lightning should only be B2B, which means business to business, and that's the best use case. So it seems like the narrative shifted from every person can run a node and can do this, and now it's more centralized.
Um, I don't think I'm not aware of this BTB talk. I don't think that's I don't agree. I think Lightning people should be able to run their own nodes. I mean, there's always a contention uh, of things that are just more efficient if it's centralized, right? That's just always going to be the case. So you kind of have to weigh whether or not you're okay um, with a little bit more centralization for more efficiency, right? So that's something that it's it's for everyone to decide for themselves. For me, if I'm making small amount of payments, I'm okay for it to be more centralized. So, for example, I use a Starbucks app to pay for Starbucks coffee, right? So that's more centralized. It's totally the money on the Starbucks app is totally controlled by Starbucks. They can just steal it if they want to, and I have nothing. I can't do anything about it. But for whatever small amount, $20 I have on the app, I'm totally fine with it being centralized and where I can only use it to buy Starbucks coffee. So similarly, I think for Lightning, if people are using it for buying buying stuff, it's okay for it to be slightly more centralized than Bitcoin, as long as you can always fall back onto a fully decentralized Bitcoin blockchain if you need to. I think the main problem right now is just it's hard to use, right? It needs to be much more simpler, where people don't have to worry about opening and closing channels. I mean, there are mobile Lightning apps out there that do make things simple, but to me, there's still it's still a lot harder to use than just using Litecoin, for example, and that's why people still use Litecoin for a lot for purchases.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, you mentioned Lightning Labs. Are you still an investor in the company? And if you are, can you also mention some other companies in which you invest?
Yeah, I invested in the company a while back. I'm still an investor. I didn't sell my equity at all. I honestly I don't pay a lot of attention about what they're doing recently, so I don't know exactly what they're doing right now. Um, yeah, I've invested in a lot of different companies. Um, let's see. For example, like Casa. I think Casa is a good solution for kind of a multi-sig wallet. Um, Bitrefill, various other companies.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you know anything about Bitrefill's use of Litecoin? If it's a popular coin on the platform?
I think it's popular. I don't think it's number one like it is with BitPay, but it's two or three. It's one of the top three coins used from the last time I saw the stats that was released. Um, yeah, I mean, like Litecoin is very useful. I mean, people use it all the time. I talk to tons of people every day that use Litecoin for buying stuff. It's just a easy to use transactional currency.
I was going to ask you, you mentioned that there are always people wanting to do cheap on chain transactions. And usually the criticism is that you should not have every transaction on a public blockchain because you don't want everything to be recorded on an open ledger that anyone can check out at a later date. And even if you have a decent amount of privacy, you can destroy that at any point when you leak your UTXO to someone. So, why do you think there's so much usage of Litecoin on BitPay and other services?
Um, I guess your question is a little bit complicated. So for the most part, people are okay with their transactions being on the public blockchain. So when I'm, yeah, so when making purchases, they don't need to hide anything. And I do agree that financial privacy is very important, and that's also why I worked on adding Mimble MWeb to Litecoin. But for the most part, people are okay with it being on public blockchain. As to why people use Litecoin over Bitcoin is mainly because of speed of the transaction or the kind of the perceived speed of the transaction and the low fees that Litecoin transactions cost, right? When you use Litecoin, you're paying cents, maybe even sub cents per transaction. Whereas when you're using Bitcoin, you're paying a few dollars per transactions.
Yeah, that's a pretty good explanation, and I'm happy that you mentioned it because there, among the Bitcoin maximalist circle, there are some people who say, oh no, you should never pay on chain. It's a bad idea. Or you should only pay on chain if the amount is high enough to justify the fee. And then when they see other layer ones like Litecoin getting traction for commerce, they're confused. They say, oh, why does this exist? And they say, oh, probably just for gambling, right? Just for speculation. There's this narrative floating around that everything that happens on an altcoin has to be either illegal or else immoral. And as proven by BitPay, that's not the case. So it's often that these market statistics are proving narratives wrong lately.
Yeah. If you look at BitPay's stats page, it shows that the average Litecoin transaction is, I think like $50. So when you're spending $50 on something, you don't want to pay like $5 fee, right? You don't want to pay 10% transaction fee. So people who spend $50 on something, they would use a coin like Litecoin, or Lightning, right? Paying low fees and fast transaction with Lightning also. So that's why people use Litecoin over Bitcoin. Um, yeah. So for smaller transactions, Litecoin is definitely easier to use and cheaper.
Yeah. But why would anyone choose Litecoin over all the other options out there? What is so special? Because I do remember in 2020, there were a bunch of people saying, oh, Litecoin is stupid because it's just a copy of Bitcoin with a couple of modified parameters. So, what makes it special?
A few things. One is it's on all the exchanges, so it's easy for people to get in and out of Litecoin. So liquidity, high liquidity, really matters. So that's one reason. The other reason is Litecoin is very close to Bitcoin in terms of the code and how it works. So it's very easy for other companies to add support for Litecoin. So Litecoin ecosystem is widely supported, and because of that, it's very widespread and easy to use.
Yeah, it's always fascinating to discover that there is a disconnect between the narrative and the market. Because if you only listen to the narrative and you become dogmatic about what's happening, you're gonna, I get, I guess you're gonna get crushed by the train of reality, the freight
Yeah, I
train.
mean most people who use Litecoin aren't on Twitter, on Reddit talking about Litecoin. They just use it, right? Litecoin is used worldwide. And I would say that most people that use Litecoin don't even know who I am. And that's a good thing. Like there's no reason they need to know who the creator is, in order to use a decentralized currency, when if the currency works well for them, right?
Yeah, and how do you explain the fact that it's BitPay, which is a payments processor from the US, where Litecoin is most popular? What's happening there?
I think BitPay services a lot of companies worldwide, so it's not just a US only um, payment processor, right? So um, yeah, I mean, I don't know whether or not Litecoin is the most popular payment coin in the US or not. All that we know is that BitPay being one of the largest, probably the largest crypto payment processing company, um, Litecoin has